needs one. And I wondered how to approach it, but I hope I will be able to look at it briefly. That's what I would have loved to talk about, but I am going to run off and in course of time and go straight to the gist. What is ICPAU? ICPAU is the National Professional Accountants Organization. Ronald has said I am the CEO of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda. That's true, but it will be very good for us to know that ICPAU is the National Professional Accountants Organization, created by an act of parliament in 1992, but now exists under the Accountants Act of 2013. I say so because I have seen people arguing about certain things that are very old and say, but this was in the law, and say, but the law was repealed. So the basics of knowing what is the framework is very good. If you are looking for an accountant, you need to know what are you looking for. ICPAU aims at delivering value to the accountancy profession in Uganda, because it's a Ugandan entity, but it also aims to make sure that the profession contributes to the growth and development of Uganda's economy. Our members serve in public interest in many segments of the economy, with influence and good reputation in areas of accountancy. I always tell people, show me a thriving business and I'll show you a good finance person or a good finance team. Those two are synonymous. It's not a coincidence. As the Institute, we deliver our mandate through partners like Enterprise Uganda. Like now, this is delivering my mandate. So if you invite me even at your business to talk about accountancy, I come, because that's our mandate, to make sure that people understand accountancy, understand the usage of accountants, and how to deploy their services. Our main two functions as written in the law is to regulate and maintain the standard of accountants in Uganda, and to prescribe and regulate the conduct of accountants and practicing accountants in Uganda. So many times people say, but these look too few. Yes, they look too few, but you cannot regulate what you don't know. So as we regulate, we start with training, the foundation, to make sure that those who come into the profession are fit for the profession. So under that, we have the Public Accountants Examinations Board. As we regulate, we have to look at those who have gone astray. So we have the disciplinary committee, disciplinary appeals committee. And as people practice, if they do anything wrong, we have the Quality Assurance Board to look at them, which has even the power of recommending to take away the practicing certificate. And even if they are not public practicing accountants, but they are accountants in employment, and there are issues of quality, you can bring them to the Quality Assurance Board, and the board will take the necessary steps. So when you look at ICPAU, we admit members in the profession in Uganda. And I emphasize this because Ugandans love anything that is non-Ugandan. And yet they are in Uganda. And because of that, we always have mismatch. So you find people applying things that are not applicable in Uganda. And then when something wrong goes, they run again to the Ugandan entity. When you ask, but you ran away from the Ugandan entity, you did a framework that doesn't support the Ugandan economy, and now you are saying we help you. How do we help you when actually you have already drilled? The basics would be to go back on the foundation. So we maintain a code of ethics, and which we use to discipline our member. We issue practicing certificates and licenses. We advise government on matters of financial accountability. And we normally do so, but without shouting. So sometimes people think advising is we must make some noise, but our professional conduct is really, if you have a meeting with someone, you write, you are replied to, and you state your facts. For us, we believe we have done our advisory. Because advising is one thing, taking it up is upon that person you have advised. The same way with accountants. When you are using them, always listen to what they say. They may say things and you think it's in passing, but you have to pick because sometimes they're advising you. They will not force themselves on you. They will just tell you what they see and how they feel it should be done, and they stop there. Because picking advice is upon the person who has been advised. So we also do anything incidental to the mandate, as the Act says. So anything in that of accountants in Uganda, you come to the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda. Now, the question I was given, why your SME needs an accountant? And in the same manner, the way these days we write our audit reports, we answer the question straight away in the summary, and then the details come later. So why should an SME have an accountant? To help with the well-being of that enterprise or business. Now, just note that I have not added in to help, because others would say to help with the financial well-being. No, to help with the well-being of an enterprise, because accountants have been misunderstood and they have been given a smaller role, only financial, but they can do much more for your business. So what a professional accountant can do today and in future, and this is why I want SMEs to appreciate and understand. As a professional accountant, there are so many roles they can play. This quadrant describes to us what an accountant can do. Accountant can plan, can do, can check, can act. Accountancy is about value addition, about value creation. So an accountant can enable value to be created, can preserve value, can report value, can actually be a creator of value. Now, majority have been relegated to report value and probably also to preserve value. But the two areas of creation and enabling have not been given space. And sometimes that's where they are misunderstood, because they will not place themselves into those roles unless you give them the chance. So if you say you need an operations officer, and then an accountant tells you, I can do it, give him that role, because many times people have said, no, for you, you are a finance director, and yet he understands operations. So if you look at the roles today, how accountants are being named, they are chief operations officer, they are value creation officer, assurance officers, production managers, management accountants. Those are roles that are very important within a business. And as an SME, because you cannot afford to have many individuals, your accountant can actually be a solution for you for other roles. I wanted to give another picture because the other one is a bit of a theoretical angle, but probably business people can understand this one. The diverse roles of professional accountant in business. Accountants can be CEOs, can be independent directors, can be educators, can be advisors, can be consultants. So you can see the role there. They can do strategic support, they can do enterprise governance, they can do business accounts, they can analyze, they can do corporate finance, they can do business strategy, they can do risk management, they can do shareholder communication. In fact, if you look at majority of the listed companies, when they are giving their roles, their performance, the CFO will come out to communicate to the shareholders. In the same way, the accountant can communicate to you, the SME, the business owner, have a session, an open session with that accountant to see what can I do as an SME. The challenge is, many people say, I know my business. The moment you say, I know my business, that's the starting downfall of a business. The question is why you need one? Why do you need an accountant? But before we go there, why you need one, I want us to first look at this. If you can understand this, then you understand why you need one. Accounting errors can be very costly, and they can really, really mess up your thought out business, especially if they are of a tax nature. Accounting errors which are tax related can get very expensive. I know many of you who interface with URA, you even ask, you may think that URA is actually unfriendly, but if it is your mistakes and the law dictates otherwise, then you have not given a room for URA to help you, because URA will only implement what the law says. Even if you explain and they say, yes, we understand you made it was an error, but errors are costly in terms of accounting, in terms of business. So if you understand that this can be very expensive, can get expensive, then you need an accountant. Addressing government requirements and communications, e.g. tax filings, legal compliance, audits, can be very tiresome. So if you are the business owner and you want also to do those and you want to grow the business, time comes and you cannot execute all. You have become very tired, so the only thing you can do is really to find a solution. You have to prepare for annual statement. You have to, even if it is your own, and that's where SMEs go wrong. I have my enterprise, I'm the one who sat down, I got capital, I generated my money, I know what I do. If you go in that format and you are not having your financial statements, you are calling disaster at time T. That's why we have seen that entities that have thrived when the founder is alive quickly crumble when the founder is away. It's simply because there are no records to follow. There are no guidelines to follow. There are no reports to know what was happening. So let's avoid that, because we have to leave a legacy for our children and make sure that they can take on what we started. So while forming the big picture, you as an enterprise owner, you as an SME owner, periodically break down and analyze the company financial conditions. And this you may not be able to do it on your own, especially if you are forming the big picture. You will not want to see any dent. That's how our minds are set. So you have to make sure that for you, you get someone who becomes your confidant, your business advisor, to help you on that track, and that would be the accountant. So preparing financial data and analysis for financing requests, which is very common what you normally say, and this is where majority make a mistake. You want the data analysis, you come to an accountant because the financial has asked you for one, and you don't want to give the history, because the accountant will not help you if you do not. The accountant is like a doctor. If you go to a clinic, but you don't want to explain the challenge or the problem, the doctor is stuck. So the doctor may run some tests, but he's running in a darkness. The same with an accountant. If you do not give historical facts, your projections, you're actually leaving the accountant in dark just to guess. And that's where preparing financial data and analyzing financial requests becomes very critical for any SME. Now, I picked about 8 reasons which I wanted to go through in detail. I have the other one was to set for you, set the solution. The wording may have sounded that you need. Yes, once you get to know the problems that can occur, then you get to know that, yes, I need an accountant. So right now, we have those 8, and I'm going to talk through all of them slowly and slowly. So you need an accountant to help you improve your cash flow. Cash is the fuel that keeps your business running. In fact, I like the talk, which is usually downtown. They call cash blood, Musai. So if to a human being, blood is what makes us flow, makes us move. To a business, it is cash. Without proper control of your cash flow, you will not be able to make critical decisions to run or grow your business. It is so important that even a highly profitable business without sufficient cash will soon collapse. So it's far important, and it's very good that you understand your cash flows and you have a good grip on your cash flow. I was recently in an entity where they were asking the shareholders to look for capitalization. But when they looked through the requirements of capitalization and why they were being told to have capital, you realized they had a very huge receivable. And these receivables, if they were handled well in time, they would not have resulted into a capitalization demand, because that was a regulatory requirement. If your receivables are in this size, or if you have this on your balance sheet, then you must also have enough capital to look at this. So you just need to understand your cash flow, know your timings. How long does it take you to generate cash? And sometimes people don't know that. But if you know the time frame, how long it takes you to turn goods from goods to liquid cash, that can help you. You can survive. You can actually survive on a very lean cash flow, but with smooth operations. So you need to appreciate what the accountant will draw out for you to improve your cash flows. Know the cash periods, know the cash growth. So having a good accountant around the business will also ensure that you have good credit control, and that improves cash management. Next, the accountant will help you to reduce your workload. As SMEs, earlier I said you are unable to recruit so many people. So when you have an accountant, because an accountant is versatile, the way I showed you the various roles an accountant can play, you can have actually some of the roles merged. Of course, that will cause for better remuneration of the accountant to feel that he can do all those roles. It requires that you understand the workload and you write it clearly. But it is a good way for you as an enterprise owner, as a business owner, to reduce your workload. And then it can help you as the business grows. Remember, you as the business owner or as an entrepreneur, you have you have day-to-day operations. You have compliances you have to make, you have tax compliances, you have, maybe if you are in a regulated environment, you have other regulatory requirements. And as the business keeps on growing, the business becomes complex. Now, when the business becomes complex, many times we have seen owners collapse. You don't need to collapse under the weight of your idea of making an enterprise or making money. You can ably find an accountant who can segment your business flow and make workloads lighter for you. So for instance, the accountant can recommend improvements in process management. The accountant can take over financial and tax obligations. The accountant can even introduce to you some tools that can help you save time. And many times people don't know, but the reason why we talk about an accountant in that format, the accountants have networking because the accountant has to be in a membership body. And regularly we ask them to be in the cohorts of their industries. So they get to understand what is happening around the industry, and they're able to know the new things that are coming in the market and are able to advise. So you need to take charge and need to take the advice that may only come to you from such networks. Thirdly, the accountant will help you manage the growth sustainability. Now, these are words I have also even highlighted because we quickly, when you are starting an enterprise, SMEs, you quickly grow, but then you stagnate. Usually the stagnation comes in because you have failed to manage the growth sustainability. And usually it comes in when you have failed to get the right team. And getting the right team is usually an issue of an analysis. So if your business is not doing business analysis, then the likely consequence is that your growth will stagnate. Because why? No one is there to show you the way to go, or you are someone to act as a sounding board for your ideas to make sure that you can move to the next level of growth. So any growing business has many needs, and such you need to manage the requirements of those needs, especially managing the requirements for funding, hiring the right team, managing cash flow, improving customer relations. So an accountant helps you manage such operations by recommending good processes. You take over all obligations to make sure that you can think as the business owner or as an SME striving to play in the market. Fourthly, to provide valuable business advice. I can't emphasize it more. Accountants carry a wealth of knowledge. Of course, these days people say, oh no, I can Google. Yes, you will Google, but you'll get an abstract answer to your challenge. But if you have someone who can understand your direction, understand where you want to go, understand the history you have gone through, I think that person can help you to give you a better advisory than a Googled answer. So yes, you can Google the answer, that's okay, but it will be better if you have someone professionally trained to give you unbiased reasons or unbiased answers to keep in check your thoughts, your ideas, and also to tease out your great opportunities in growing that network. The accountant will also help you to stay ahead of trends and regulations. Many of you now have seen the passing of NSSF, amended NSSF bill. There are requirements therein for the employer. So if for you, you have not been bothered because you're saying, oh, this is my business, this is an SME, soon it can catch up with you and you find yourself, you need to pay penalties, which you could have avoided if you had someone to help you get to know the trends and the regulations that are coming into the market. How do we do this as accountants? Because accountants stay always in a continuous professional development. There's not any accountant who ceases to read, who ceases to learn. That is not an accountant. So if you have one in your business, but you never see him talk about anything new, just know that accountant is sleeping and is not adding value to you. And you have to find something that can work. So you need to find a competitive accountant that can visualize your major direction, what your business requires, what your thoughts are. Because when accountants listen to the business owners, what they think should be done, they're able to go back and synthesize and find what are the trends, what are these new things that are coming on, what does regulation say, and they're able to find clear guidance using expert analytics to make sure that the trends are in sync with your desires as a business owner, and you can navigate the new regulations that have come on board. The accountant can also help you to improve cost efficiencies. And that's probably our core, because we understand cost implications very, very much. And sometimes that's where the challenge comes, that people are advised on cost management and they think the accountant doesn't want development. But you have to understand what type of development are you going to use. Is it organic growth? Is it acquisition? What are you trying to do? Because there is a price to every option you take. And that's what you need to understand when they are advising you on improving your cost efficiencies. Because even a basic function like managing cash flow or reducing business expenses can help a business to grow exponentially. So you need an expert accountant who can provide you with financial mapping, which can help you decide which costs to keep, which costs to cut, which costs can be improved, which contracts are too expensive for you to deliver. I have ever listened to someone, a business person, who said he got a contract to supply cement, and the contract was very lucrative. But you know, the downfall of it was you are supplied within a specific time period. And when they analyzed with the accountant the specific time period, it required number of trucks 3 times the trucks they had. So the question was, can you execute such a contract? How are you able to execute it? Because if you just say, because I'm an entrepreneur, I have got a contract, let me go in it, you may easily end up winding up your business because you have not analyzed the nitty-gritty of the contract. So you need to be very careful when you are trying to find cost efficiencies. Discuss with your accountant and make sure you can gain value from it. You can have alternatives, because sometimes the alternatives along the way. Then the accountant can also help you process payroll. Now, one of the things that have come out very interesting, interacting with the URA, many business employers have negated payroll management. And the law says, if you have not deducted taxes from your employee, you are liable for those taxes. So many employers, especially SMEs, they say, no, me, I just pay the individual cash. Yes, you have paid the individual cash, he has gone away, but it's your employee. And doesn't matter whether that employee was 1 week, 1 month, 2 months, the law assumes that you'll apportion and reduce the taxes and make sure that you deduct the taxes as they are supposed. The taxes are written per year, but you can apportion them into per month, into per week, and be able to make a return. So I have come across entities that are suffering penalties simply because payroll was mismanaged. And that has led a downfall to many SMEs. So an accountant helps you to manage that payroll. You need to manage it effectively in line with the payroll regulations, and make sure that you avoid fines. There are tax fines, there is NSSF fines. There should be some compliance for your business to run smoothly. And lastly, why would you need an accountant? Why you need one? To help you measure business performance. There's nothing that has made SMEs go down like lack of measure of their performance. Because you ask them, okay, you started with the 2 million. Right now you have bought this, you have done this. What has been your performance? And they tell you, for me, the moment I have money, I plan on what I do next. Okay, that's good. But what is your business performance? Because when you start out to do a business, the business becomes a legal entity on its own, separate from you. And you need to know how it is performing. How are you performing as the owner? It's the only way you can make the business survive or thrive, or it's the only way you can even pass it on to the next person. It doesn't necessarily need to be your child, your relative. You can sell it off because you know how the business performs. So once neglected, that means you don't know your set objectives. You can't measure anything against those set objectives and the results that come out. And yet you need to know by acquired customers. If they ask you the potential of your business, are you able to assess it? Because if you know your customer base, you can assess the potential of your business. How many complaints have you solved? Are there invoices that you have written off? What are the most critical aspects of your business? Now, those are all business performance parameters that you can actually come up with your accountant in order to save your business. All right, that's why you need one. At least if you have not picked all of the 8, you can pick one of the 8. Now, I want us to look at the benefits of a sound accounting system. Accounting is about record keeping, analyzing, financial planning, and forecasting, and then complying with the state laws and industry regulations. Like I said earlier, accounting errors are very costly, but you have to keep an accounting system that is thorough for you, that can give you relevant data. And you have to navigate every aspect of the business, especially as your business grows and your finances become complex. So a good financial accounting system, or benefits of a sound accounting system, will help you to add value to your customers. It helps you to run ethically, and it gives you a comfort to be within the trends or the operations of your entity. The question people have or usually ask, but I am an SME, I'm small, when should I consider to have an accountant? My advice is that look at the nature of your industry. There are industries where it is mandatory for you to have a financial planner. So if you are playing in that industry, whether you are an SME or not, you need an accountant. Look at the size of your entity. And now the size of your entity can be measured in more than one dimension. It can be measured on their turnover. It can be measured on the number of employees. It can be measured in the volume of customers. because that can actually help you to map. Because the reason why we say those parameters, set those parameters, is that the accountant has a role to play in knowing if your turnover exceeds so high. For instance, there is a law that says in tax management that any entity with a turnover of more than 500 million should have accounts prepared by an accountant. So if you don't know that, there's a likelihood that you not do the right accounts, and it can be costly for you in future. If you have many staff, because accountants play an administrative role usually because of their background and training, and you find many organizations combine finance and administration. So if your number of staff are many, that means you need really an accountant, a good one. Then you look at the complex scenarios or the complexity of the transactions you're handling in order to make sure whether you need an accountant or not. But always ensure that you have proper accounting records. Now, I have put in that because I'm going to give you the differences. You can have proper accounting records when you don't have an accountant, because there is a group of people we call bookkeepers, and those bookkeepers help you to record your accounting transactions. So you can actually, using those parameters, you can ask yourself, can I have a bookkeeper, or do I need an experienced accountant? But it's always to have the accounting records in place, because an accountant will not start from creating records. He will start from those that you already have. So bookkeepers help you to keep the records, and then the accountant help you to synthesize those records. Then you can also ask yourself whether you need a full-time person or you need an hourly person. So you can hire based on what you really want to have there. Can I have a full-time person? No. But can I have someone who comes in every 2 hours a day, or every 3 hours once a week? Possibly. So those are the issues you have to ask yourself, but you cannot say that you don't need an accountant. Now, I talked about ethical requirements. I can't go away without looking at this, because this is what makes us accountants. Professionalism is key, and you must make sure that an accountant has the required skills, remains relevant, adds value to the customers, acts ethically, and is able to drive your business agenda. Now, what drives our ethical requirements is an ethical framework, which we call the conceptual framework of accountancy. It has professional competence and due care, that someone must have integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, which is very key for SMEs, because their ideas, they want to have them kept to themselves. Then there must be professional behavior. But most importantly, for a professional accountant, he needs to remain independent. So that independence helps to tell you at the face of your face that, look here, you are the owner, but you have gone overboard. I recall one time in my earlier works, young as I was then, I told an owner that you need to bring more money into your business. And he looked at me, he looked at my report. Luckily, this is a guy who would read whatever you put before him. And he asked questions, I answered them, and I told him, unless this happens within the next 3 months, I don't see how we can survive. And he was able to go and listen. And he looked at actually the mapping of why I needed more money, or why we needed more money for the entity to survive. The entity needed a breather so that it can renegotiate the loans negotiate. The biggest challenge that Enter had that time was an overdraft. And that at times, business people do so ignorantly. An overdraft is a very dangerous borrowing. But many business people do it and say, no, I can just go and have an overdraft. But you need to know for how long, what is its impact to the operations. So if someone is not running professional, if the accountant is not professional, what is being done, likelihood is you will have a gap in your operations. Now, I'm about there. I am left, I think, with 3 slides. What ought to be done? I just need a reflection which you have to do as an SME, as a business owner. And these are quotes I have picked from the writers, and those which are in the boxes. But my version, I have always said that the most important part of every road to success is to know what ought to be done. So if you know your business requires an accountant, you are nearer to the success. You are on the road to the success. So the next action would be, can I then get the accountant? Which slides I have just given you? This slide. Look at your nature of industry, look at the size, look at the complexity, find out whether you start with a bookkeeper versus an accountant, full-time versus an hourly contract. So you need to know. Now, to do what ought to be done, but what would not have been done unless I did it, I thought to be my duty. So my duty today is to tell you what you need. But if I go away without saying it, then I know I have failed my duty. So the most important part of every business is to know what ought to be done. As SMEs, just get that right. If you know you need to answer some obligations, make them answer. If you don't have the capacity, find the person who has the capacity. So what does ICPAU do to support SMEs? Our role, if you look at our mandate, the best we can do is to train, and train. So we continuously train accountants. We periodically review the accounting syllabus to capture new trends, to make sure they are competent. And we have started on a framework where we must have them undergo practical experience before we can register them as accountants. Demonstrate that you have practically understood what is in the field for you to be able to support others. And then we give guidance and tools, and we continuously do research to make sure SMEs can survive. SMEs, as they say, is the engine of growth, but that growth can only be sustained if the SMEs are doing the right thing. Where to find an authentic accountant in Uganda? For all professional accountants in Uganda, they must be registered with the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda. I have come across many who say, oh, I studied, but I'm not a member. Anyone who doesn't want to act ethically, as an SME, I would say, run away from them. Because you don't know what they do at your back. If anyone says, if, for instance, you are in a family and they say, all of us, when we come back from school, we must greet our parents. But every time, greet our parents before you go to remove the uniform, to undress and put on the clothes for the home. And you find someone who always first sneaks into the house, changes clothes, and comes back to greet. That person is hiding something. So I always tell SMEs, and I tell every business in Uganda, anyone who has an accountant who is not a member of ICPAU but claims to be a professional accountant, that's a fake. Because there's no way in Uganda The law says if you are an accountant in Uganda, you must be registered with the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda. And we always request you, always cross-check facts presented to you by anyone identifying as an accountant. And is it cross-check those facts? Check them at our website. At our website, there is a slot where you can type in the name and check whether that name appears. If it appears, that person is in our database. If it doesn't appear, because there are other reasons why he may not appear, for instance, he's not a member in good standing. That word is packed a bit. Member in good standing means a person has paid membership subscription, has done his continuous professional development, continuous learning, has no disciplinary proceeding against that person. So sometimes if there's anything of that, the person doesn't automatically appear, but can still be in the database. So the next, if you haven't found the person on the website, send an email. But you can also call, or you can visit us at plot 42, 46, 48 Bukoto Street, which is the last end of Kololo as you're about to begin Kamocha. So always cross-check and cross-check and cross-check. So in conclusion, there's no doubt an accountant can help you add value to your business in a variety of ways. Give your business a boost by hiring a knowledgeable accountant who can help your business thrive and sustain itself. I thank you for listening to me, and questions are welcome.
All right, thanks a lot, Mr. Nkajja, for that submission. It was an insightful conversation about the role of the accountant in our businesses, issues of what happens when we don't have one, what happens if we don't listen to the one who we have, where we can be able to find one. There were a couple of messages here which kind of hit me. You alluded to the accountant helping you with understanding your cash flow, and you commented that a profitable business can collapse. A business is profitable but has no cash and it collapses. Just understanding your obligations, the role of the accountant in understanding trends and regulations. I think those are that's something which is a pain point. We carried out, and a number of studies have been carried out on areas like taxation. It's still one of the biggest pain points of entrepreneurs. But largely, we also know that it's a lot of it is by the time we are trying to solve problems as accountants, people are already in deep pits. So those are conversations that I think Mr. Nkajja has alluded to ably. Now, at this moment, we are going to have an opportunity to ask some questions. You can put up your hand if you want to share something. Mr. Nkajja, there are a couple of questions that have come through in the chat room. I will pass them to you as you prepare to answer them. If you want to say something, please just put up your hand. We'll also give you an opportunity to do that. We have a question from Abdallah Kaduyu, who asks, what's the difference between an accountant and an auditor? That's a question which he has. There is number two that George is asking for you to clarify on the overdraft. Is it actually a loan? Is the overdraft a loan? Peter is asking, as an accountant, can I do my own books of accounts without involving a CPA? Nkajja, you will advise on that. There is another question.
Hold on, Ronald. I need to write all of them.
Okay. Great. Please, members, if you have any questions, post them in the chat room. If you want to make a comment or ask a question, you can also put up your hands, and our admin will allow you to be able to ask those questions.
Okay,
yes,
I'm ready to rewrite again because I realized that
great.
after the third one, I had forgotten the first. So,
Okay, possibly you'll take those three first, and then I'll ask the next three.
Recap a bit. I
So
know
the first
one
one,
of accountant and auditor, that one I can't forget.
yes, the accountant and the auditor, yes. Then clarifying on the overdraft, is it actually a loan? The overdraft, is it a loan? Then Peter is asking, I think I'll give you both those. Actually, let me give you the 5, then you'll answer them. Peter is asking, as an accountant, can I do my own books of accounts without involving a CPA? Then Peter again is asking, what's the future of the accountancy profession with the advent of blockchain? Is blockchain something which will replace the role of accountants? You can touch on that. And then Maureen asked, what would be a reasonable salary for an accountant, for an hour, for a day, or for a month? How should she go about that decision? You could possibly take those. Members, if you have any others, please post them. We will have another round of questions. And you can also put up your hands if you want to ask a couple of questions.
All right. Thank you, Ronald. Thank you, members, for the questions. That at least gives me comfort that members were listening. Accountant and an auditor. An auditor, I take it to be the highest form of calling in accountancy profession. There are 7 lines of accountancy. We call them 7 areas of accountancy profession. And those 7 areas include, let me read them for you. They include financial reporting, auditing, taxation, financial management, management accounting, insolvency practice, and information technology. Those are the technical areas currently we state in our country. And those can play so many roles around. So when it comes to auditing, there are 2 segments of auditing. There is internal auditing and external auditing. Now, when we name them and say accountant, an accountant can do both. And can be an accountant who is not giving an assurance services, but the auditor gives assurance services. That's the auditing aspect. He reviews compliance, internal control, and assures you what is within your segment. So an auditor is, I call it the highest form of an accountant. Not that he's greatly superior, but when I call it a calling, because your conduct as an auditor is not every accountant can actually be an auditor. That's the fact, because it requires you to conduct yourself in a certain way, requires you to ask questions in a certain way. They may be on the same subject, but everyone looking at it in a different angle. And that's the bit of accounting. So if, for instance, we can say an auditor can be a pathologist if we are to go into the medicine, because you find someone who can diagnose what killed this person must know the medicine angle as well. So that's how an accountant is. That's how an auditor is with the accountant. You become an accountant first, and then you are sent to auditing. So that's the difference, or the similarity. Is an overdraft a loan? Absolutely. Because why? A loan is money lent to you which you must return. An overdraft, the bank allows you to draw money which is not yours, which means they have lent to you. And because you are borrowing at unknown terms, unknown, they don't know when you are going to put back that money. They charge you a higher rate than a normal loan. I have seen companies rolling over overdrafts, and here's another 1 year. Actually, they start 1 month, 2 months, a whole quarter, a year, and they are rolling over. I always tell people, just convert that into a fixed term loan. An overdraft is a temporary loan and can be called back anytime, any day by the bank. So don't just say, oh, I got an overdraft. It's not a loan, it's a loan. Accounting, if you're an accountant, can you do your books of accounts? Absolutely. That's the reason you studied accounting, to be able to do that type of role. So you can do them, but probably you may need a reviewer because it becomes hard and challenging to review your own work. But you can do your accounts. Do the accounts, carry through all the protocols you know about accounting by yourself. You can. It's the difference we have with the doctors. A doctor shouldn't treat himself or can't treat himself, but we can run accounts for our businesses. Although I have seen people self-medicate and they have become doctors by themselves, but you can run your own books of accounts as an accountant. The future of accountancy profession given blockchain. I actually had a slide when I was working this. I thought I should put it there, and I removed it because they asked about the role of an accountant. If you look at the evolution of industries, starting from first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution, third industrial revolution, and now we are talking about the fourth industrial revolution, there has been a role played by the accountant. When you look at the accountant today and the accountant of the second industrial revolution, because we are in the third industrial revolution bordering fourth industrial revolution, the roles are totally different. There was a time when an auditor, when he started coming in at the start of the third industrial revolution, where his role was just to come and sit in a meeting and narrate what he has seen. Then it evolved into writing a report, because that time he would give his opinion by word of mouth. So the evolution of industries also calls for evolution of skill set. We believe all studies that have been done is that there will be an accounting profession, but it may not be doing exactly what is being done right now, because all routine aspects are being automated. When you look at blockchain, still it will require, because blockchain will work far better when we have Internet of Things, when you interconnect gadgets to gadgets. And the aim is you do not want anyone to tamper with what has taken place. That's the technology of blockchain, that once you do it, you have done it, it is firm, you can't change it. So the accountant now will become a different game player. He will be probably an analyst, which role actually we already do in our accountancy. He may be a strategist to find out what does the business have to learn from these data sets. So the roles are coming up and they will come out, but we still believe the future of the accountancy profession is there, but it will only be doing a different role from what it is currently. Reasonable salary. Now, I want you to find it to look at it in this format. What value do you expect, or what value does the accountant bring to the table? We are in a country which doesn't have a minimum wage. We are in a country of market force and demand. So we have forces of supply, we have forces of demand. So I cannot say that actually this is the bare minimum. For instance, if you are in a role which it is mandatory, you must have an accountant, the price you may pay may be different from the one who just says, I think let me just call on an accountant. But it can also be that if you do not have that accountant, the volume you lose, you will be much higher than when you have an accountant. So you can actually look at what is the accountant saving you, and then you determine a salary or an hourly rate. I have a friend of mine. They were carrying out, they have shops. Their turnover was huge. And we told them that actually, you guys, you need an accountant. I said, by the way, we need an accountant. So he sent an assessment, and when they did an assessment, they said, you know what, based on your roles, you need 3 people. So he says, look for me 3 people. So they get a full accountant, they get those who are about to complete, and they get a bookkeeper. And within 6 months, they had sorted out the headache of this person. Do you know what happened? In the 8th month, he fired all of them. I said, these people are making me be open to all my ideas. And it wasn't to be open to all ideas. They were just actually solving the challenges he has. The challenges were being made because the business had grown. He's one guy. Everything, no one knows until he's there. As I speak, the business is under. Because why? The moment the other accountants learned what he did to the other accountant, they said, we can't work with that one. Working with an accountant calls for your openness, because that's what we deal with. We deal with truth and fairness. So if you are not open, accountants will run away from you, unless they are crooks. But authentic accountants will always want someone who is open, able to share what the problems are, and then they map the solution together. So for lack of better word, I would say, what is costly? Having an accountant or running down your business? Over to you, Ronald.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Nkajja. I particularly liked that was the gentleman who fired all the accountants for making them so open. I think that's a point which you raise, and in the work which we do, we have found that one of the things is that the accountant is going to steer you into the direction of openness. This includes even with the regulatory authorities, that we need to make sure that that we are straight on our regulatory angle. And I think that process for the entrepreneur can prove a bit complex, and it's always important to ensure that you look at it from the perspective, as Derick has said, from the perspective of how can this make my business grow bigger? How can this make my business international? How can this make my business regional? But usually, as the entrepreneur, this has always been a big debate and a big conflict. There are another set of questions here. Let me just quickly share them with you. Someone wants to know the difference between CPA and SCA. You will share with them what the difference is. Kenneth Kirabo shared, please go to the chat room for capacity building of accountants and financial literacy training. Kenneth from Marine Financial Group. Marine, thank you for being here. Please do reach out. The contact is in there. Rosemary is asking, as an SME that is choking with costs, where can I find a cheap and professional accountant or bookkeeper? That's from Rosemary. Robert is asking, do you do short courses that can help a business leader or owner to have some basic appreciation of accounting? That is from Robert. Yeah, Rachel is just sharing with us her business. She's from SACI Innovations in Mukono. And then Peter has asked, is it true that accountants play a major role in the industry? I'm not sure which industry. I think possibly what I will ask Mr. Nkajja there is, you talked about some industries which are where it's mandatory to have an accountant. Please just throw a bit more light on which industries. I've seen a number of people on the call who are running financial institutions, many in the SACCO business. I just wanted you to throw a picture, to paint a picture for us for which industries is it mandatory to actually have an accountant on your team. I know a number of colleagues here who are in running cooperatives and SACCOs, and it would be interesting to kind of point a picture for them then.
Thank you, Ronald, and thank you, members, for the questions that keep flowing. I'll start off with that very last one. Which industries do we see that require an accountant? There are industries that where by law, they have said you must. For instance, if you have a fiduciary duty, and a fiduciary duty is described as a role where you are keeping people's resources, you are keeping people's money, you are keeping people's assets. If you have a fiduciary duty, what you are doing is not entirely yours privately, but you are doing it collectively on behalf of others. You need an accountant. So you find majority of the SACCOs, they need an accountant. And we always tell them, you don't need to start with one who is full-time. I've given you the parameters or the permutations there that you can actually be having. You can have someone part-time, you can have someone hourly. So you need to understand, because I have seen entities that are carrying on a fiduciary duty and mishandle it because they can't separate monies that are theirs and monies that are for the entity and monies that are for the shareholders. So if you are running a fiduciary duty, you need an accountant. There are industries that have been gazetted by law. For instance, if you're in the financial services industry, you need an accountant. Every industry that has a specific law tends to give a description on management, and usually they tend to single out an accountant. So it may be hard to give you all of them here, but at least I have told you, if you have a fiduciary duty, doing things on behalf of others, you need an accountant. Okay, next. Do we have short courses? We don't have short courses per se. Most of the trainings we run benefit those who are either on-job training in that aspect, or for an accountant who has already started on a journey, is training, or an accountant who has completed. We are not essentially a tuition provider institute. We are an examining and skilling. When I say skilling, at times it's misunderstood. It's one word that has been misunderstood in Uganda. But when we call it continuous improvement, that's the best word I can use. It's continuous improvement, and continuous improvement means you already have a base. So if you're asking for someone who doesn't know anything about accountancy and needs to learn something, we may not be the suitable people to come to, but there are so many. I've even seen someone posting here that they do training. So there are many that can train you some basics, but we are more into regulatory examination and improving accountants. You are choking on costs. Where do you find cheap and professional? It's very interesting. Combining both cheap and professional. Training an accountant in Uganda is not cheap. There are 7 years of study. We are running, we have talked to many trainers to see how they can really use the training framework, which we desire as professional accountants, to bring down those years to somewhere like 5 years. There are those who have picked it up, there are those who are not. So when you talk about cheap and professional, it's very hard to combine them in the same sentence. But what I can say, they are affordable. If you are talking on costs and you need someone to help you analyze, you can actually find an affordable person. What we normally do is we request such entities or anyone like that, you write to the institute, you profile yourself, the team sends you about 5 or 6 accountants whom you can choose from. We never select for you because it is your business decision. But once you picture for us who you are, what your challenges are, we know accountants who have served in that area, sort of area, and then we can send them to you and you speak to each one of them, you find what you can, who can fit within your budget and who can fit within your challenge. Then the last one is what's the difference between a Scca and Cpa? I'll just say one thing. Cpa is Ugandan, and we are developing the accountancy profession for Uganda. But it is, we are developing accountancy profession for Uganda based on the International Federation of Accountants framework. SCA, we all know where it came from. It's based in UK. It is training an accountant based on a similar framework, but using UK formats. So that's it. They are all accountants, but in Uganda, if you say you are an accountant, you must be a member of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda. So if you attempt any foreign accountancy qualification, whichever, India, Canada, America, and you come back to Uganda, we ask you, are you aware of the business laws of Uganda? And most likely you have not studied them. Are you aware about the tax system of Uganda? You have not studied it. And are you aware about the public sector of Uganda? You have not. So you attempt, if you are to register with the institute, then you have to attempt those local aspects of ours. Because for the professional type, yes, you may have something, but remember, you are not working in isolation. You are supporting businesses to fulfill the obligations under the business law, under the tax laws, and if there are entities in public sector, under the public sector. So that's the difference. Ronald?
Thanks so much. We have just a few minutes. I'm going to request that we just quickly answer the last 3 questions. The last 3 which we have one, what qualification? This is from Daniel. What qualification? What's the qualification of a bookkeeper in case I want to hire one? Someone says, I want an accountant, I want a bookkeeper. What's the qualification? Emmanuel is asking, I want the accountant to enlighten me about challenges of IFRS when filing and taxing, filing for tax returns as an individual. I guess you could have touched on it, but so he just wanted you to paint a picture on the challenges of IFRS when filing for the tax returns as an individual. And then there is another question in that same line, the best way of claiming tax returns from URA when I've presented all my expenditure receipts at the end of the year. I think that is in line. That's still from Emma. That's a question which is in the same direction. So I think, Mr. Nkajja, you will quickly answer those, and then we will possibly wrap up. I think Emma wanted you to put a contrast on this individual filing in Uganda versus in Kenya, and possibly the role the accountant can play in that space. Possibly, Mr. Nkajja, before you come, let me give Mr. Kigwe an opportunity to speak so that you can answer all the questions once. Godfrey, please go ahead. Godfrey, you can go ahead. Godfrey, are you there? Yes, Godfrey, go ahead, please.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mukasa, for the opportunity. Thank you very much, Mr. Nkajja, for the good presentation. My question is that does it make sense to approach an accountant at the stage of starting up business?
Okay.
Yeah, that's my question.
Thank you. Thank you, Godfrey. That's a very good question. Should you start with the accountant in mind, or you wait when things heat up a bit and then you bring them in? All right, Mr. Nkajja, over to you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, members, for your continuous insights you are bringing on board. I'll start with the very last one. Depending on the nature of the business you are having or you are doing, an accountant can be useful, because an accountant can do a business case study and a projection. Many business people call it a business plan, to understand whether this entity can work based on the processes envisaged, can work based on the anticipated revenue. So when you are doing a business plan, you can discuss with an accountant, or you can have the actual accountant actually do it for you. So yes, if you are starting a business, you can have the business accountant. You can also, the accountant can also help you to understand the formalities or the formality the business may need. So it's good always to first listen out. So because consulting at the start is cheaper, can help you actually to avoid a number of things. And I always encourage anyone who is starting with some slight amount, hire a talk or a chat with an accountant and a lawyer, business lawyer, not a criminal lawyer. Business lawyer for an hour or two, and you bounce off your ideas, and you get to know what you want to do. Because the business formats differ, the industries differ, but it makes business sense because you can avoid. I will give you also another scenario. At one time where with them, I was dealing with a business person who invested $100,000 in, I'll call it business analysis. Hired an accountant, hired lawyers to do a business case scenario and due diligence, and came back showing a break-even point that was higher than what he thought it should, and just terminated from there. He said, no, I can't wait for that long to wait for my money to come back. So when you're starting out, there are certain things that can be of help from the discussions you have with accountants and the business lawyer, the two of them, even a tax practitioner, because the way you set up can help you to save money, or you can burn money unknowingly. Then we move on to the best way of claiming taxes. I don't want to give you wrong information. tax is very specific. You need the tax practitioner. Even the one of IFRIS challenges, I don't want to give you anything wrong there. My suggestion would be find a tax practitioner who has gone through similar challenges and can help you. Comparison of challenges of IFRIS in Uganda and taxes in Kenya, still that can only be if you have someone who practices in both, practices in Kenya and practices here. Because jurisdiction has jurisdictional requirements. The laws may sound similar, but the applicability may be slightly different. And that comes also to the accountants, the one who asked the difference between Scca and Cpa. Because it's all accounting, sounds all accounting, but when it comes to applicability, you need to find out. For instance, I can tell you that when I was studying accountants, I studied futures. I have never applied futures in my work life. Why? Because the course I studied, in their market, futures are common trend. Futures are contracts of future actions. But in Uganda, probably now they are starting, because I see people are starting to do some benchmarking. But that's after 20 years plus. So you need to you get someone who understands the market, and then you can ask. So I wouldn't want to give you anything wrong on the challenges of IFRIS. I know it's a nice system, but the only thing I know is that some business people don't like to disclose everything. That's the only challenge I know. Ugandans want to hide some things, but I've worked with entities that have declared all taxes and I have seen them grow. What's the difference? The difference is that they incorporate a team that will synthesize the business scenario, find what is the lowest cost of achieving it, and move forward. I think, someone asked what are the qualifications for bookkeepers? From where I sit from, unless you have a professional qualification, you are all bookkeepers. So a diploma, a degree, to me, they are all bookkeepers. Because when you look at the Ugandan market, all degrees, we are challenged with the way they teach accounting. And none of the degrees, we have two accredited, we have actually one, because the second one hasn't started. We have only one accredited degree that teaches accounting based on the framework we desire. The rest are teaching about accounting. And we have talked to them. Some are starting gradually to change, because we want to shorten the time of training an accountant. And we hope that they will be able to move towards us, because National Council for Education has indicated the need to shorten that period, and they will probably change their way and the syllabus for the accounting, and then they will move. So a bookkeeper, anyone who has studied about single entry, double entry, bookkeeping, and that's the foundation of accounts. And all our diplomas, all our degrees teach something about that. So I call all of them bookkeepers until they complete the professional course.
Mr. Nkajja, which you mentioned that accredited institution, you could possibly.
And it is not the entire course, it's not all the courses that institution offers. It has one bachelor, which we worked together to construct. It's Uganda Matters University. They are bachelors of accounting and finance. So anyone who takes a stream of accounting in that has studied based on our syllabus, and in their year 2, they start attempting our exams for this upper level, but foundation level, they will have studied what we believe should be studied. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Nkajja. Thanks a lot, colleagues, for joining in. Mr. Nkajja, it's been an honor listening to you as you shared on this subject, which from the many questions that have come through is close to the hearts of many entrepreneurs. We certainly haven't managed to answer possibly the questions which are coming through because time has run out. But one thing which is clear is that I think the subject which Mr. Nkajja has ably shared is important to us to notice. And I want to go back to where he started, that we need to make sure that we get the basics right. Getting the basics right, it means that doing at least some things need to be done in a certain way. If you are a person who is a manager of a circle, for example, you have to ask, have I got the services of an accountant? Why? Because that person, because of the fiduciary duty that I have. So those are all messages that have come through very well. We want to thank all of you for joining the program. Next Thursday, we will, Scca 9 will be there. We'll be sharing with you the next discussion. We have an opportunity for some entrepreneurs who would want what we call a business health check. This is when someone comes and does a diagnostic on your business to ask you questions. Certainly finance is one of those big areas. So if you're interested, please do post in the chat room. One of my colleagues has been in touch asking some of your questions to be able to participate in this. So if you are interested in that, please to look out. We have a number of people here. Mr. Nkajja, there are a number of the people in your profession who have been on, and Mr. Nkajja said that you can receive training from a number of other service providers. Please do reach out to them. They have put their contacts in the chat room. Please take interest. Elvis has said if you're having a challenge with IFRIS, he can be able to help you. Elvis, so please reach out to Elvis. He's right there in the chat room. Marine Financials have also been here. There are a number of other people. Please, if you are in this space, I encourage you to post your contact so that people who may want specific help can be able to reach out to you. Once again, thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks a lot for taking off time this Thursday morning to be able to grow in our businesses. As we usually say, we are in a recovery series. We want to make sure that we are recovering stronger as businesses. And we do believe that the help that we need is around. And sometimes it's bridging that gap. Mr. Nkajja's membership at ICPAU is a rich membership. Please go and reach out to the list of, to try to contact them on their website, and you can be able to find an accountant who is possibly located in your space so that you can be able to reach out to them. We want to do businesses right. Mr. Nkajja's first statement was that businesses are the ones which hold the economy together. And I think it is such a powerful statement. We want to see businesses that are crossing borders, businesses that are creating jobs, but we know that the formalization of these businesses is critical if this is to happen. So it's the reason why we are having this collaboration and we'll continue to have it. We want to thank the team at ICPAU, led by Mr. Derick Nkajja, for sharing with us their knowledge. And we are looking forward to more collaboration in the time to come. And to thank each and every one of you who has joined us today to kind of grow our businesses. Once again, thank you so much and have a lovely rest of the day. The meeting is going to remain open. You can leave at leisure. If you want to share your contact, please share it. We need to know someone who may need your help. And if business can go down after this, then that's good. That's the purpose of these sessions. Have a lovely day and nice Thursday.